On May 28, 2025, Mifflin Township, that's in Ohio, police conducted a traffic stop during which an unjust criminal aggressor shot both officers and fled. One of the officers was critically wounded, but now he's in stable condition after 3 surgeries. The other was treated and released fairly quickly. A few days later, police located the suspect hiding in an apartment. He ended up shooting at SWAT with a rifle before the bad guy did something that I can't talk about because of community guidelines. But whatever that thing was that he did, the result was he ended up in the hospital in critical condition, although I think that's been upgraded to stable. So if he recovers, then we'll look forward to a trial. If you want to see the uninterrupted full video, at normal speed, I put a link in the description. Hey guys, retired Lieutenant Todd Heaton with Humilitas First. We look at the profession of law enforcement, and for those of us who love the profession, well, we grieve over what's been happening this last decade, going back to the lies of hands up, don't shoot from Ferguson, Missouri.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
The Ferguson effect. If you don't know what that means, I'll put a link in the description to a short 4-minute video. She's got a lot of good videos, but a short video by Heather McDonald, who also wrote a book titled The War on Cops, which digs down on the Ferguson effect. Okay, let's break this one down. One of the pressers revealed that everything was fine until backup arrived and started to approach the passenger side of the vehicle.
The officer approached on the passenger side. He's the one that joined into the traffic stop. Shortly, as soon as he basically walks up to the passenger side, the passenger in the vehicle bails out and there's a foot chase.
So transitions, that's a transition, and timing is a really important factor. The bad guy here, he sees in the mirror that the backup has arrived and is beginning to approach on foot the passenger side of the vehicle. According to news reports, he should know he's legally prohibited from possessing a firearm because of his prior convictions for burglary and obstruction of justice, which means that would be an additional felony charge. So he remembers, oh yeah, I left mac and cheese cooking on the stove. I gotta go. The whole point of that is before the backup officer closes distance and kind of traps him in the car, he's gonna bolt. He's gonna run. The top concern for good police officers is simple. Why is this guy fleeing? The key question is whether he's armed. Drugs or warrants might explain the flight, but they rarely get you killed. The real danger lies in fleeing suspects who are illegally carrying firearms. Note how his support hand is not touching his waist, but we see his dominant hand, assuming he's right-handed, which most people are, reaches to cover or to touch what is probably a firearm. Unless you train this out of your behavior, this is common for concealed carriers when they transition from a seated to a standing position. Well, he seems to keep his right hand pinned to this area of his waist as he turns to run away. That's kind of weird, right? For him to reach for his waistline under this set of circumstances, that's a valid reason for a police officer to draw their firearm in preparation for a gunfight. You want some more confirmation? Okay. Well, what I would be watching for, we all like to talk about situational awareness, right? Is things like, why is his left arm and hand free swinging in a natural way, like when a person is sprinting? And yet, his right arm and hand, well, they remain hidden with his upper arm and his elbow much tighter to his body. That's not natural. That's a clue. My guess is he's already drawn the gun and he's just keeping it out of sight. Because if the officer sees the gun in his hand, then he might begin shooting. We're going to see the bad guy fall down. The falling down and the getting back up, well, that's a transition. There's opportunities in transitions. Having been in many foot pursuits, I can tell you that when you're the one that's pursuing and you see this kind of thing, the bad guy falling to the ground, or he just seems to be running out of gas, you often get a boost of adrenaline or a burst to close with and finish it with the tackle, timed at the moment that he's beginning to stand back up, getting hands on him to effect the arrest, to secure him in handcuffs. But transitions, again, they're opportunities. They can be exploited by either party that's involved in a violent confrontation. So as we see violent attacks on police officers increase, then best practices, they're going to change. The first priority here is to look at the hands. Does he have a gun in his hands? Well, here we see, yes, he does have a gun in his right hand. Let's say he doesn't have a gun in his hand. The next thing that I'm going to look at is going to be his shoulders and his hips, because they tell a story. When he's beginning to get back up, what story are his shoulders and hips telling me? Is he getting back up, continuing to face away to continue running? Or, as we see in this video example, is he using this transition, rising and turning to face me? In this case, it's the worst of both of those. He does have a gun in his right hand, and he's beginning to rise facing me, bringing both of his hands together in a shooting stance, aligned with and pointing directly at the officer. That is not good. What's a solution to this problem? This is Jake Labhart. He's a former Army Airborne infantryman who, after leaving the military, he founded In Extremis Performance. Check his company out over at inextremisperformance.com. If you click on his training page, one of the first things you see is bridging the gap between human performance and shooting performance. That's what he does. The instant that you see him begin to fall, you begin deceleration. You start hitting the brakes so that when you get to this point, you're ready up on target. It is time to begin sending those little projectiles at like 1,200 feet per second in an effort to incapacitate this unjust criminal aggressor, to neutralize this imminent deadly force threat, which really just means to take away his will before he takes away your will. Occasionally, I'll get questions from friends and clients who are considering buying a taser for self-defense. For less lethal options, I usually point him in the direction of pepper spray. For lethal, obviously, I point him in the direction of a firearm. Why? Well, I don't have any numbers. We didn't keep track of the effectiveness of a taser. But I'll put a link in the description to an article that I put a lot of stock in as it relates to taser effectiveness from some of the largest police departments in some of the largest cities in the United States. Now we come to the crux of the matter, the urgent training issue that needs to get fixed as soon as possible with everything I just showed you, which should tell the officer, hey, this guy's got a gun. There's only one tool to effectively deal with this kind of unjust, violent criminal problem. That's the firearm. That is not a taser. The first few times I watched this, I thought the officer readied up with the firearm. I had to slow it down, and then I caught it. He has a taser. And if you watch the full unedited, uninterrupted video, which the link's in the description, then you're going to hear the officer does deploy the taser. The problem is the taser doesn't deliver the desired result. I don't know, maybe he missed. Maybe only one of the prongs stuck in rather than two. But it doesn't slow this guy down. The best that I can tell, the only person that's sending little projectiles at like 1,200 feet per second is the bad guy. Let's take a look at the second officer's body cam. Maybe he's prepared with the firearm in his hands. No, he's not. He's got a taser out as well. This is a training issue that needs to be fixed. If you're an instructor, make sure your people know this. If you care about your people, then train them properly. This kind of disturbing trend, it needs to stop immediately. Don't misunderstand me. There is a time and a place for something like a taser. The relatively newer Axon product, the Taser 10, well, that might be far more reliable. But because I've been out since 2017, I just don't know. Even if it was, say it was 99% effective, I'm not required, nor would I, gamble with my life on that 1%. In other words, if you believe that a suspect has a firearm and things are spinning up, well, this is definitely not the time nor the place to pull a taser. This is the time and the place to ready up your firearm. Now, I don't have a clue as to whether these officers received good or bad training. I don't work there. I don't know. If they got bad training, then that would explain it. But let's say they got good training. What other logical explanation would help us understand why you would want to take a taser to a gunfight?
Hands up. Don't shoot.
The Ferguson effect, meaning they don't want to get fired, charged, tried, convicted, and sent to prison for acting within the law, acting in a reasonable manner, essentially doing their job, for doing the next right thing. So yes, we grieve over what's happened low these last many years in the profession of law enforcement.